Welcome, everyone. This is Jordan with Foodbevy, the online community for food and beverage founders. And today I get to talk with Emily with Lil Bucks, someone that I've known for a really long time, and cool to sit down and talk about everything that's new. So love for you to just give a quick pitch on the two products that you have and tell us a little bit about how you got started.
Yeah, so Lil Bucks, we make crunchy snacks and breakfast toppings out of sprouted buckwheat seeds, which this whole obsession with sprouted buckwheat seeds started when I lived in Australia and found I had sprouted buckwheat on an acai bowl as a grain-free granola replacement, and then started seeing it used everywhere in restaurants, cafes, used as a hero ingredient in breakfast products. So that inspired me to start a whole brand around sprouted buckwheat. And we've been buying, our mission is to elevate the demand for buckwheat in the US because not only is it an extremely healthy food, high in protein, fiber, antioxidants, you name it, but it's great for soil health. And so we're working on partnering only with North American farmers to organic farmers to contribute to regenerative agriculture and improving soil health. And being from the Midwest, buckwheat grows really well in cold soil. So it all came full circle.
That's awesome. And I think it's really cool how you were inspired from living in Australia. But maybe for those that don't know, you're a little bit of a digital nomad and kind of have traveled around the world and lived in different places. So talk about like that experience of running a company, but then also, traveling while doing it.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, that's like such a great way to learn so much because, of course, you learn so much about yourself from starting a business and being an entrepreneur, but you also learn so much about yourself and have, fun times and hard lessons from traveling. So digital nomad was a really expansive experience for me personally and professionally. You meet people from around the world, no boundaries on, no borders of where you've met people that have really interesting ideas. So in the development of Lil Bucks, that was really great. The design of Lil Bucks. I mean, I even I'm a graphic designer by trade. So that is something I was able to do remotely and start building a business remotely from places like Bali and Central America, Nicaragua, Hawaii, which was just quite an adventure. But even in the Lil Bucks brand is really inspired by travel. Even the little icons I drew like inspired by some, drawings I saw on a wall in Indonesia. And it all, I think, is still feeds into the brand today. Definitely learned a lot, I think, about time management and when you're working and traveling, there's so much you want to do and see, and you can actually get pretty burnt out because when you're traveling, you're so excited and you want to do everything, but you still have to work at least 8 hours a day, and usually when you're running a business it's more than that. So it kind of put me on a fast track to learning those lessons on that, finding some semblance of balance and not burning yourself out, because I did get burnt out. And then now I think that's helped me move forward with building the business sustainably, which now that we're going through this pandemic, I'm obviously not traveling, but I'm sure like you, me, all the other entrepreneurs, just like the tables have flipped. I don't know if that's the phrase, but it's been insane. So, and you're at home, so it's so easy to just work, 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. and do it again. But like having those cutoffs and boundaries, I think I was like prepared for, because I already forced myself to do that when I was being a digital nomad. But
That's
being a
really
digital
great. Yeah.
nomad was a lot more glamorous, for sure. Cooler Instagram posts.
Yeah, definitely, and can get out of the crazy Midwest weather that we have here. Um,
Yeah, I was a young
so,
snowbird.
so buckwheat is super new. Well, it's not new. It's been around in the U.S., but it's not like a staple grain that's everywhere. So, talk about some of the challenges that you had to do in building a brand around an ingredient that people didn't really have a relationship with.
Yeah, that's been a really interesting challenge that I've taken the brunt of building, since we're really the only brand in the US focused on buckwheat. And actually, the way that buckwheat is mostly understood in the US is by primarily Russians and Eastern Europeans grew up eating buckwheat as like a porridge called kasha. So it's cooked buckwheat. And it's just something, a part of their culture. I think it's mostly as breakfast, but it can even be like a side dish in more savory meals. So the way buckwheat is understood for them is completely different than how the Australians were eating it. And then on top of that, maybe the wider American population probably has experienced at some point maybe buckwheat pancakes or buckwheat flour, which to me and many others I've learned, it just resonates with kind of gross, dense, healthy, weird pancakes like your grandma made you eat or something. So when I was in Australia, I just started seeing this widespread use of the sprouted and dehydrated buckwheat seeds. So that gives it this crunch. And since they're sprouted and dehydrated, they're shelf stable. And then you can eat buckwheat as like a crunchy topping rather than, having to cook it into a porridge or bake it into bread or pancakes. So there's a lot we can do with it. It's really exciting. But of course, there's been a lot of education. And I think one of the things I learned early on, it took over a year of testing and learning with our consumers. But our original product line is Lil Bucks Sprouted Buckwheat Crunch, which you can get in Whole Foods. And it really resonates with our target audience, millennial women primarily, that are cooking in the kitchen. They might even be making their own energy balls or smoothie bowls or yogurt bowls. They're willing to take that step to create. But for a more general consumer, it was still a lot of education to be like, what are these seeds and how do I use them? And especially in the pandemic when we can't do events or demos anymore, which was our primary education piece with the Lil Bucks, that was such a bummer. Of course, we have digital marketing that's accelerated, but it's still such a slow build with the education to get more and more people on board with sprouted buckwheat seeds. So then we launched and I've been already working on this because I knew that more of a snacking product would make sense. Like, let's offer buckwheat seeds to consumers in a format they already know. So we explored some options, but ultimately came back with cluster bucks, which are the adaptogenic buckwheat clusters. And they're, we know how to eat clusters. You can snack on them on the go, bring them with you on a hike. There's countless opportunities, or it's something you do have in your pantry that you can put on your smoothies and yogurts and ice cream. But it really opened it up to not having to do as much education in store and online. But we've seen our velocities really skyrocket with that product line, even though we launched it in April during the pandemic. So that's been an interesting learning with kind of bringing people into the buckwheat world via something that consumers actually understand. But yeah, digital marketing, of course, is a big piece of the education, especially now that we can't do demos.
Yeah, totally. And I love that journey and kind of growing and reaching your customer in a new way and making the buckwheat more approachable as a snack. So talking a little bit about this year, you mentioned you can't do demos anymore. No one can. What have been some of the tools that have been effective in driving trial for you?
Yeah, so that's been fun to play around with. In general, our Amazon has really blown up thanks to you helping me kind of optimize that in the early days. So I still use what I learned from you. And it's really starting to pick up and gain kind of organic momentum, which is really great. So that's a great way to get people to first discover buckwheat, because the Amazon is a search engine. And then another way we've done it is through our email marketing. I find that to be really important, and working on even building out more automations. But we did Facebook and Instagram lead ads to offer free samples and coupons to consumers early in the pandemic, since we had all this, single serve samples for events and all these coupons we printed for all these events and demos we were going to do. And so we were just started a lead ad to be like, hey, put in your email and address and we'll send you free coupons, samples. And I think that helped to get awareness and add a real personal touch to consumers. Of course, it was a lift in terms of having to just like pack envelopes to send out coupons and single serves. But you're of course not using all that manpower on demos, which was a huge cost savings. Another thing we did was move our brand ambassadors. We launched an affiliate program, which meant we were able to extend our brand ambassadors to different regions that were not in retail. And we did find that I think a lot of people that are already blogging, you know, they might have been laid off themselves from their full-time job or part-time work, or, you know, some brands that normally had a big budget to sponsor them don't anymore. So they've been a lot more keen to or receptive to affiliate codes and promoting them. So we launched that really quickly and seen success with that. We transferred some brand ambassadors to recipe developers, and now we're really currently working on making an ebook, a recipe ebook as well. But I think home cooking is up so much and here to stay. So doing more recipes and easy, like how you can incorporate this at home, driving trial that way. So, but all of it's kind of in that digital space. We're keeping our eye on those opportunities for in-person, but it does, I mean, even Whole Foods just opened it up to being able to do guest demos again, but I'm concerned with the store traffic being so down and people being, you know, you don't want to like touch people you don't know. Not that you'd be touching.
They'll probably
like,
almost be like shocked. Like most customers would be shocked to like try anything, and then the ones that do want to like linger are probably a little crazy.
Yeah, exactly. Like, so I don't know if it would be worth the effort 100% versus all these other things we're doing in digital at this time at least. So
very cool. Well, definitely adjusting to the times. And then I know you've been doing this for a little while now. So if you were to give one piece of advice to someone starting a business right now, what would you tell them?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I would say really understand your why for starting the business, because every entrepreneur that's been doing it for at least a couple years will tell you that it requires a lot of resilience. And I even have surprised myself with how many things we bounced back from that, you know, we took a hit, or like this store launch didn't happen when we thought it was going to, or, you know, pandemic, a lot happens. And it's so funny because the first thing that went wrong with my business really early, I was making the product in a shared kitchen and the product didn't turn out like it was supposed to. We used a shared dehydrator from the shared kitchen and it had smoked salmon residue in it, and that absorbed into our sprouted buckwheat. And it was 2 days before a festival where I was launching the brand, and I had like a temper tantrum and for like 10 minutes, and then picked myself back up and bought my own dehydrator and moved on with life. But now like so many more quote unquote catastrophic things have happened, which we've been fine. But I've been able to take it like a champ and just say, okay, like what's the next step to improving it? But being able to be that resilient always comes back to the why, like, because there will be really challenging times and entrepreneurship can be lonely. Build a community like you've helped facilitate. But also, yeah, you just need to always come back to why the heck am I doing this, and have a really strong like personal belief in why you started this, because then you'll always keep going. Like there's never been a moment for me that said maybe I should like think about not doing this, or maybe it's not going to work. There's always been a commitment to it, and that's never wavered, even with a lot of pandemic stuff that's been happening. Pandemic like things. Yeah.
Well, hey, that's perfectly said. And I have nothing else to add to that. Emily, with CEO and co-founder of Lil Bucks, thanks so much for being on today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.